Hey everyone, welcome to Revenge Career. This is the podcast that turns your worst work nightmares into the sweetest revenge. I'm JT.
And I'm Dani. How was your
Did you
week,
have to think
JT?
about that for a minute, Dani? You were
A minute. I'm still sleep deprived.
well, that's right. In fact, I was going to ask you how your week is, but I know how that is because you have a toddler, which means you're not getting sleep.
Yes,
Uh, is
exactly.
he
He's been
feeling
a little
better? Is
sick
he on the
and
mend?
he's learned how to climb out of his crib.
Oh, that's right. He learned how to crawl out of his crib. So, folks listening in that have children, you understand that is like the moment of horror. I remember when
Yes.
my firstborn, watched it on the cam. Do you know what I mean?
Oh
Up
my
and over.
gosh. Yep.
One of
Yep.
those horrifying moments. Oh,
Oh yeah. And how about you? Anything happening this week for you?
good. Busy. I think I'm just glad that it's not raining. For those of you that are in New England, we've had the rainiest summer ever. I feel like everything's probably covered in mold, but I feel like it's kind
Yes.
of been sunny the last couple of days, which has been nice. So,
Very true.
uh, anyways, I'm so excited. This is our first episode of Revenge Career. For those of you listening in, this is really a brainchild that Dani and I came up with as we would meet every single week and we would get into these deep conversations. We kept saying, geez, we should probably record these and share them with other people. And we thought, why not? We're gonna do it. So if you are somebody who's been wronged at work, this is the show for you. And maybe if you like what you hear today, you might even send us in your story. So with that in mind, though, we're going to kick it off with a little career cringe of the week. Dani, this is where you and I pick out things that just made us cringe given our line of work. So I'm going to have you start first. What was your career cringe?
Yeah. So I don't know if you've seen recently, there's actually been a retrending of this Australian CEO who would conduct interviews, but before the interview would start, he would walk through like the building and kind of do a tour, but he'd end up in the kitchen and ask if they wanted anything to drink. And so a lot of people obviously would, take a water or coffee or whatever it may be. And so then they'd conduct the interview. And this was back in 2019, I should also just say that. So that's why it's retrending because social media users are starting to call this person out again on how deeply disturbing the psychosocial game he's playing is. So at the end of these interviews, he would wait and see if the interviewee would offer to bring the coffee cup back down to the kitchen or clean it or pick up. And I just find it a little cringy because if you don't get a drink, does that play a role in the hiring process for him?
Interview's
But
over.
yeah, right. You're like, oh, you're not gonna, you don't want to drink. What do you mean? How are
Don't
you
you?
gonna make that weird? But then on top of that, the reason I totally understand where a lot of social media is coming from is because as if interviews aren't, hard enough on all of us and you're already nervous, you're trying to make a good impression. Now you have to worry about this unsaid thing that this person's gauging you on that you had like no idea.
Right.
Um, but and so I'd love to hear your take on it, but I was also just really taken aback because that was part of his process. He's like, if you break the cup, brought the cup back, great. And if you didn't, I took a note of that. And I'm like, but there's a bigger story behind that for him. But it's so
So much.
weird.
Yeah. So much goes through my brain. First of all,
Yeah.
hiring is discrimination, right? So we talk about that all the time. There are protected classes, but at the end of the day, if there's 5 candidates with all relatively the same experience, I'm going to have to discriminate and choose one that day because I can't hire all 5, right? So I get a CEO needs their process for starting to figure that out.
Mm-hmm.
It's weird because if I took a coffee, I would definitely ask where could I throw it out. I think that's just who I am. And I'm sure you and I we're both raised the same way. You're in a guest place, you don't make
Yes.
a mess.
Yep.
So I see where he was going with that, but it's an interview.
Right.
To your point, like, what if somebody's so nervous they're not thinking about that, right? Or,
Exactly.
they just don't want to cause any problems. At the same time, though, is that his mentality? That I don't want somebody who is so weak in their character. And I'm not saying that's weak, but that's what's going through his head. He's defining it as week.
Exactly.
You don't know. So it's fascinating. I'm with you. I don't agree with it.
No,
but
it
I
is very weird.
It is, and it was funny. My husband's a pilot. And back when he was becoming a pilot, there were certain airlines, they would get thousands of applications of guys and gals that were all the same. And then you would bring in hundreds and they were all the same. And he said it was revealed later on, like one airline even admitted that at one time it was so bad that HR would walk in and say, today we're only hiring people with blue eyes. No joke.
Wow.
No joke. But think about it. It was sheer volume. He had
Right.
no competitive advantage over any other. They all had the same hours. Like, so
Yep.
for them, it was like, then we might as well roll the dice. It would have been the
Right.
same as rolling a dice and saying, we looked at 6 candidates today, whatever number comes up is who we're going to hire. And he was like,
Exactly.
so
It's a lot.
it is. And it just reminds me, that
Mhm.
story just reminds me that hiring is discrimination, and you have to go in ready to play your A game.
Yep, across the board. And to your point, the character side of that is definitely one of the points that he made in this podcast to the interviewer, just saying like
Yeah.
the whole reason I'm doing this is I want to figure out like the least possible task that this person, would feel like obligated to do or like have part of. And so it is a character thing, but I think there could have been a better process around this. And I think you're definitely kind of mentioning that as well. Like it's
Yeah.
just a little bit odd that you're gonna let a coffee cup be the reason this person
Totally.
makes or breaks it.
Totally, totally. Which, by the way, now that I look at it, your CEO is from Australia for this week's Career Cringe. So is mine. I wonder if
Yes,
it's the same guy.
maybe.
Mine, he's known as Avocado Guy because what blew him up at one point was like some awful stuff he said. But what he's back in the news for is he announced that he wants to see unemployment get to 40 to 50% in Australia. He's one of those that's saying nobody wants to work, right? Everyone's being super picky about what jobs they take.
Mm.
So I want unemployment to hit 40 to 50% so people will swallow their pride and get back to work. And like, really? You needed to say that out loud? Really?
Yeah,
And
40.
40
I
to
mean,
50%, you want to see
you want
half the
half the
working
country to just be not employed?
like, talk about, wanting to manipulate people. Like,
Yeah,
what a horrible, horrible thing to say.
true.
I am worried about the unemployment rate. I will
Yeah.
say this, it is climbing, and it's not, at least here in the US, our adjusted rate, which is people who are working multiple jobs, part-time jobs, or in jobs that are sort of under their skill set,
Mm.
that they all get counted as employed. So that arbitrarily keeps the unemployment rate low. Our unemployment rate
Mm.
is higher and climbing. And it scares me because I feel like everything we're doing with inflation is like a slingshot, right? Like we're pulling back, and there's going to be this boink, which is
Yeah.
what this guy's talking about. So
Mhm.
it does worry me.
Yeah.
But
That correction.
for him to say it with such passion, like just ew.
Yeah. I mean, come on, there's families and there's just things that that's a tough break
I
for
know. Be-
for anyone to hear, I think, but I totally understand again, to your point, where he's coming from. It's like there is that, like, let's swing the pendulum back and forth, but
but solve
yeah,
the
that's
bigger
not the best way
problem.
to say it.
Yeah, I know, but solve the bigger problem, which is people are like still emotionally dealing with stuff post pandemic, and we
Yes.
need to get people back to that place. And so I
Yeah.
will say this, and I did just do a TikTok on this, that there is a lot of unproductive discomfort going on right now. You call it
Mhm.
unproductive discomfort, meaning people are, I don't want to say wallowing in it, but still treading in a place and feeling uneasy, distressed, but not doing anything really focused on it. And the
Right.
reality is we want the aspirin. We don't want to take the vitamins. We want the quick fix. We want the thing that's easiest to get us out of pain.
Yep.
But we all know what you
Mhm.
really have to do is elevate, or I say trade up your discomfort for productive discomfort, which is temporary, but it's
Yes.
going to get you your results, right? If
Right.
you look at people who want to get healthier, there's going to be some temporary discomfort,
Yep.
whether it's increased exercise or better food choices or whatever, to get there. But
Right.
what do people mostly want to do? Go have the plastic surgery.
Yep.
Like,
Exactly. Yeah. I
so
want the quick fix and I'll just
I,
figure it out.
yeah, so I understand like the premise, but boy, he just missed the mark entirely. Like so
Yeah.
tone deaf. But
Yeah, he
anyway,
definitely should have had a writer to help him out with that one.
I think he likes it though. I mean, I think CEOs like that just embrace it. Figure out,
True. I
but
do sometimes I do wonder, obviously, with the media, it's like, no news is or even bad news is good news for a lot of companies, so
yeah,
it's like, ooh. But yeah,
it's
that's a tough
interesting.
one.
Okay, let's flip to happier stuff.
Yes, please.
So shout
Um,
outs. Who you I'll let you go. Who do you want to shout out to this week? Who deserves a nod?
yeah, so I know that your background is in training and recruiting and coaching, and mine actually comes from learning and development, so it's really interesting to me, I think, on the thought process that employees have when it comes to HR. It is one of those departments. It's like it's a little cringy or like, oh gosh, do I talk to these people? Like, and people get close. Some people get close with their HR rep, but I want to shout out this LinkedIn page specifically. It's called Hacking HR. So if you go into LinkedIn and you search out Hacking HR, it comes up. And the reason I say this is because I've been stung. I've been stung by, some bad HR reps and some companies, obviously. And you do find out as an employee very quickly that HR is working for the business. Even though you need to be aware of the fact that they are there for the people, but they also have to support that business, which is totally understandable. And you, as age comes about, you learn this typically the hard way. Well, at least for some of us. But with that, I love this page because they break down some really great things that HR does handle and does help in businesses. And so one specific graphic, which, we'll have a link to in the description, but it really breaks down what DEI is all about. So there's diversity, there's acceptance. And the way they phrase this is by talking about if you go to a party and what that's like. So you got an invite to the party. That's part of, the acceptance and you're going. And then you get invited to the dance floor. That's, you're like, you're belonging, you're in the mix. You're like, oh, okay, I actually feel like I'm supposed to be here, even though I may not know everybody. But they also start to talk about and again, that idea of just belonging being separate from diversity, equity, inclusion.
Totally.
Which is totally a different, and as a community manager, that's exactly like what we talk about. We've discussed this over and over again. It's one of those things that I work with with our members constantly is there's being in a community, but there's belonging and making sure that you're feeling like you're supported, but you're also giving value at the same time. So I just really love this page. I really hope you guys check it out. Go and follow them. They not only talk about the DEI situation, but they really touch base on some great HR points that make you realize that HR is not the enemy. Yeah. And I think a lot of people, like I said, I was stung by HR, like a bad situation at one point, and it is hard. You have to accept that, but it's not all bad. Yeah. And you have to approach HR the way HR supports a business. It's a business strategy. So you gotta work with it. But that page is wonderful. I hope everyone goes and checks it out.
I'm with you. I think if you hate HR, if you've been burned by HR, go over and check that out because you will better understand what they do. Exactly. But they're also showing you what good HR is.
Exactly. So thank you. And that's probably the point.
If you're in a company and you can tell your HR isn't like doing what this page is talking about, then you don't have strong HR. And you should be even more careful about what you do. But there are some companies that have really exceptional HR and you shouldn't see them all, lump them all in. We all don't want to be categorized or lumped into one thing. Not everybody in HR wants to be thrown into that, HR is the enemy, category.
It's like the one bad egg situation,
And that graphic that you're linking to, this is one of those that people need to learn. Like, I think there are a lot of people high up that don't understand that there's, diversity. Let's check that box. This graphic starts to talk about it's not a box checking exercise, right? There's way more to it. So I love how they edutain people to understand it as well.
That's a great way to put that.
Yeah.
But yeah, how about your shout out? Who do you want to shout out this week?
So my shout out more is to the fact that I think that this is probably a dream career for many a person. Gannett it's like a newspaper media company, is hiring a fully dedicated Taylor Swift reporter. And this person is going to be reporting for USA Today and the Tennessean. And because she is such a cultural phenomenon, right? Like the crazy impact that this woman has on economies, right? Wherever she goes to have concerts and things, that they want somebody to follow this full time. And all you need is 5 years of journalism experience. And it's going to pay between $45,000 to like almost $106,000 a year. So I can't even imagine how many people probably applied for that job, right? I'm just thinking the time that you and I are recording this, she's starting to date somebody new in the NFL. Literally, my husband was joking and saying there's all this social media now where people are saying that their wives now understand football because of Taylor Swift. Like jersey sales went up 400% when it was announced. Like she's just a phenomenon. And so that's one of those jobs, like a once in a lifetime job. Like that's the definition to me. I think you got to go for it.
Oh my gosh. Yes. Well, and I know we talked about this a little bit previously too, is There was another article about Taylor Swift about how she just the culture that she has of support for her employees.
Yeah.
So how she even like got to the point of like bonusing her truck drivers and like just that if you take care of the people that work for you, and I mean look at what she's changing economies. Like there's a
Literally.
reason. And so to have that employment and know that Taylor Swift is also going to get your back, I'm sorry, but that is like a dream career.
I know. And I think I read somewhere those truck drivers got like 100 grand.
Which, I mean, those
Given
are
their
long hours and she's going everywhere. So
Yeah.
that's
But
probably worth the pain a
so
little bit.
cool. So cool.
Yeah.
So, if anybody listening applied to the job, please message us. I would love to hear about the hiring process for that.
Yeah.
Like, do you get trivia quizzed? Do you know every song?
Oh.
Like, I don't know. Like, you need to be a pretty big Swiftie, I think, to get that. Or maybe
Yeah,
you
no
don't.
kidding,
Maybe they
right?
want you to be super objective. I don't know.
Yeah.
Fascinating. All right. Well, now
It's a
let's get
lot.
to the main event. So, folks, this is like we said, this is our first episode, but every episode we are going to have a work woe to win. What that means is we're going to talk about somebody's horror story that they sent in. We've changed the names to protect the innocent, but we are telling you these are 100% true stories that people came in. And I got to say, when we got this first one, Dani, you and I were like, "Oh my god! Like, this is insane?"
Yeah.
Truly, truly insane. So fitting for our first one. So I know you're going to read it off to everyone. Let's hear it.
Yeah. Okay. So I'm just going to get through the whole thing and then we'll break it all down. So this listener was hired for marketing and business development at a small architectural firm with about 15 employees total. And despite the initial excitement that this person had, they soon realized it was a challenging environment. On the positive side, one of the partners respected work life balance. That was something that was definitely pointed out very early on in their hiring, and they encouraged this employee, hey, make sure you take the time for you and leave by 5:30 or 6. However, there was a darker side to this same partner. Colleagues warned this employee to leave by 6 p.m. because around 7 p.m. he would come back to the office with his hookers and be serviced in the office. This partner also had a habit of screaming at colleagues when frustrated, creating just a demoralizing work atmosphere. Additionally, the firm had a bad reputation, making it difficult to secure new business due to his reputation in the industry. So eventually, this employee was fired, which they were not surprised. And then when packing their belongings, they discovered an email from the partner that fired them discussing the termination due to their age and the dismissal also in the same email of another employee that was pregnant. This employee happened to save this email as evidence of age discrimination and also later shared it with the other partner. So the partner that wasn't doing all of the after work hour things. And that partner was completely unaware that this employee was being fired, and actually helped them to find a new job. But the experience overall, just for this employee, was absolutely demoralizing, and it just prompted her to leave the industry just completely and start anew.
Yeah. So first of all, ew.
Yes.
But also, like, why is he yelling if he's doing that? Like what kind of stress level does he have that he's yelling?
Yeah.
And just so bad all the way around.
Yeah.
And the fact that the reputation was at the point that the company's not making business. So, you and I always talk about in career coaching, especially inside Work It Daily, we always talk to people about the MOA, the moment of accountability. And that's the moment where you need to look back at the situation and say, what could I have done differently? Not you did anything wrong. Like, this person clearly did nothing wrong.
Yeah.
But if you're going to learn from this stuff and turn it into sweet career revenge, you do need to pick a moment of accountability and be able to say, looking back, if that ever happened again, this is how I would do it differently. That shows that you're learning and growing, and that's empowerment. That's you reclaiming the power of the situation, which I think is such a big part of what we do, right? People come in and like share stories like this, and it's our opportunity to say, where's your MOA? Okay, let's move on. So if I had to pick hers, I would say the moment she learned of that situation, the moment she knew that was going on and saw the yelling, that's not a healthy environment. And people that stay in environments like that, and I want everyone to hear this because I think this is going to really drive you to never let yourself be there. The moment you're in an environment like that, the people that stay in those environments don't believe that they are employable enough to go someplace else. I want you to think about that. So if I'm going to sit and take abuse, I think I deserve it, or I think I'm not good enough to go someplace else. That is extremely concerning to me.
Yeah.
So the fact there's a whole group of people there, those people, either they're getting something out of that deal that they're willing to put up with that, which again, like no amount of money is going to be worth that, for your health.
Yep.
But that moment should have been the moment that she started looking for a new job, regardless if you'd even been there a month. Then you didn't even hiccup, just keep looking for a new job. It's just you got a paycheck until you find a new job.
Exactly.
I don't know. I think that's my thought. What do you think?
Yeah. So, we talk about this again all the time, that retrospect is always like, you're like, oh my gosh, like what was I thinking? And for me, it's tough because you wouldn't think this until after something like this happened. But going forward, learning from that, my moment of accountability for this person would probably be in the interview process. Like, can I talk to a colleague? What is my department, like, can I speak with my department manager? Can I learn about what the projects are? And like, how is the system of success or communication really go here? Asking those important questions in interviews are just crucial. They're not going to, if they're not going to grant you access to talk to a colleague prior to you being hired, what are they hiding? Big red flag. But then also to that point is, you'll learn very quickly if you do get that opportunity to talk to a colleague, hey, this is a lot of like how the management style is. And so you'll hear, probably in an uneasy kind of conversation, that, hey, like he kind of yells, or like, you just got to rub it off, and to your point, it's one of those areas where my next question in terms of that, even seeing someone else being yelled at, I'd be like, oh my God, when is it going to be me?
Yeah. Holding your breath.
That's because everyone thinks it's like, oh, it's not going to be me. Like, I'm going to do so great. I'm going to kill it. And I'm sure you are. I really am. But that's not something you can control. It's that person. So if you're seeing it, again, I think to your point, the interview would have been my first questioning part. Like, how can I better understand what this, system is all about? But especially that piece of, if someone's going to mention anger, like the way that management style is like yelling and demoralizing you for nothing or mistakes or whatever it is, run. Yeah. Because you're on the target list somewhere sooner or later.
Your idea about the questioning, I mean, I think you pointed out some great questions, like, why is this position open? What is your expectation for this person? How are you going to know if this person's doing their job correctly? And I love your point about, can I meet a coworker? Yeah. And even if they agree to let you meet the coworker, but the coworker seems a little guarded.
Exactly.
Right? Walking around the environment, everybody seems a little off. I got to admit, this happened, this specific situation, but something similar happened to me when I was very young, in my mid-20s, 26-ish.
Okay.
I went to work for a company, and the founder was like an MIT genius. And he had no social skills.
Yeah.
And so very quickly I got in there and realized that all the people that were there were literally held hostage by golden handcuffs. They could not get hired other places. So it was this whole little group of people with their own challenges. And it made me feel so bad about myself. Like, how did I not see this in the interview? How did I not pick up on how dysfunctional this environment was? Right. And there was like the CFO would go on these massive screaming tirades. And they would always be fighting with the CEO, the two of them, not at other people, but like the two of them. And you held your breath, right? It was so uncomfortable. And there were so many things there, but it was probably a good 6 or 8 months before I said, I can't do this. I need to find a new job. And that was back when you didn't leave a job after a year. You stayed at a company. Yeah. So for me to be in that much pain after 6 months, but it did, the shame I felt, which was like, how did I let myself get into this situation?
Yeah. Well, and people, especially back, and like, I remember when I was first leaving college, the same thing. You did not job hop.
Right.
That was not a thing. You found a company and you were there for at least, I mean, I remember my mom telling me this, like, you're at least there for like 3 years. And I'm like, what? Why?
Yeah. Yeah. I think my parents said 5. I was
yeah. Well, and it's what I'm kind of glad that kind of has shifted now, but at the same point, it's like that is it. The first thing you have is like, oh my God, like I blame myself because
You
how
do.
did I not see this? And that's the worst feeling in the world to sit there and be like, there's this horrible situation, but you're blaming yourself of something that you can't even control.
Right.
So
Which I think that's like so much of what happens like when our members come in and they're really defeated. It's
yes,
one of these moments. So if we can save somebody from that with
yeah,
this podcast, this is the intent of the Revenge Career podcast. It's for you all to hear this and go, oh my gosh, I heard that in a podcast. I'm in a bad situation. It's not my fault. Right. I feel like
exactly.
that's that moment in Goodwill Hunting. It's not your fault.
Yeah.
Not your
Oh
fault.
my
It's
God,
not your fault.
that
Right.
scene kills me.
Like that's what we have to drive into people. It's not your fault. But
Yep.
hey, let's move on. Don't stick around.
No,
Crazy.
yeah. I mean, you just have to think that the target is always going to be moving and you don't know where it's going to land. So,
Totally.
great point there. It's
Well,
just tough.
I love that. I hope it helped folks. Honestly, folks, if you have a revenge career moment that you need to share with us, the link's going to be in here. Send it to us. We'll remove your names, change whatever. But again, you could really help somebody based on your own experience. Also, did you like the podcast? We hope that you did, because really your work experience, especially your worst work experience, can totally be the launch pad for career success. That's the point of this show. So if you really like today, we're asking you to do one thing. We go over and like it, whatever you're listening to, wherever you're listening to, just like it, comment, whatever you can do. We just want to get in more ears. So you doing that will really help us be able to spread the word. And Dani, I'll have you close it out.
Yeah. So, like JT mentioned, if you guys have a story that you're just itching to share, that you're looking for some insight on, we want to talk about it. So, there's a form in the description for the podcast. And then we're all ears. We're ready to dive into the good, the bad, and obviously the jaw droppingly ugly. So, the other piece I want to leave you with is don't forget to follow us on LinkedIn and TikTok at Work It Daily. You can find us pretty much through Google there. Don't even, just type in Work It Daily. You'll find us. I promise.
I love it. All right, folks. Well, until next time, remember what we always tell you. If you want to win, you got to work it daily. So come back and see us soon. Take care. Bye-bye.
All right. Have a good one.